The time that we have been waiting for is just about to be upon us. Listen, everyone, it's been a fantastic day. We're going to end it on one of the highest notes that we can end it on. We've got Health Sherpa here with us this afternoon. Thank you so much for being here today, Ross. We really can't appreciate you more. I'm going to just go ahead and turn it right over to you, bud. If your mic is on and you're ready to go, we'll go over to the next slide and you can just take it over.
Excellent. Sounds great. Thanks, Vince. Thanks, everyone, for jumping on here today. Great to be a part of the AOBG Gallagher kickoff. Real quick, my name's Ross Baker. I'm a senior agency account manager here at HealthSherpa. I've been with HealthSherpa a little more than 2 years. I've been in the ACA space since June of 2013. And I work with AOBG, their team, a number of their downlines. I'm sure I've spoken to a number of you on the call today. Really appreciate, the partnership with them and this opportunity to bring everyone up to date on a lot of the changes that have happened in the past 6 months or so, what we're doing to gear up for OEP and answering any questions here that I can help with. So what we'll touch on today, quick ACA market overview, talk about what's driving the growth in the ACA, hint, it's agents and brokers using HealthSherpa. Regulatory change review, we'll talk about, some of those CMS mandated changes that we've had to adapt our product to, what that looks like from, your end and your experience. We'll get into some product enhancements we've made for open enrollment. These are more voluntary um, product enhancements and get into renewals options there. We'll talk about Georgia and Georgia Access. Georgia's moving to a state-based marketplace, fully integrated with Health Sherpa. More on that in a moment. And then get into some additional training and support resources as well. All right, go ahead. All right, so we like to start, by sharing that Health Sherpa is now the largest and fastest growing individual health coverage exchange in the US. A lot of people are always curious, what our business model is, how we make money. Essentially, we're a marketplace technology company that our goal is to simplify access to health plans from both federal and state marketplaces. So we've got you all that are the boots on the ground that have the client relationships, have people that need to get enrolled in health insurance. And then the other side of the marketplace is all of the carriers with their plans that need people enrolled. And we see ourselves as that conduit to help make that happen, make it happen as quickly, as efficiently as possible, and allow you all to do more and more business to grow your business. So when we look at Health Sherpa enrollment volume, you can see over the past 6 OEPs, 2020 is really when EDE was first fully in effect. If you're not familiar with EDE, it's basically what CMS terms for enhanced direct enrollment, or what they call directly connecting to healthcare.gov via an API. So EDE is what allows you to do everything on Health Sherpa. You don't really need to pop over to healthcare.gov. For those agents that have been around a while, it used to be very clunky, where you're popping from Health Sherpa to healthcare.gov and back. Very poor workflow for you and the consumer. Next. All right, so this is a chart of broker market share increasing. So over the past 4 OEPs, the number of applications with an NPN associated with them has gone from about 55, 60% all the way up to, next chart, please, 78.4% across the FFM. So you could see some states are even higher than that. These are all the people that obviously, need help doing their enrollments, completing applications. That's where you all come in, helping them get enrolled. Let's go ahead to the next slide. All right. And so, with all of that, effort on your end, really, you guys are all in a great organization. AOBG is the largest partner with sub agencies on Health Sherpa, doing a massive amount of enrollments. We work very closely with their entire team, which allows us to claim 55% market share and the largest channel for new and active ACA enrollments. So we grew about 70% year over year. Healthcare.gov, for context, only does about 25% of new active enrollments. A lot of the healthcare.gov attributed enrollments are just things that are happening passively on the back end. And then 20% is other private channels. This is other EDEs. This is state-based exchanges, things like that. All right, so now we'll jump into the regulatory change review. Go ahead. All right, so many of these, it was the summer of regulatory change. Many of these changes, impacted your lives, how you log in, how you use Health Sherpa. Probably the most common ones you'll be familiar with, FFM account integration. That was actually introduced last year, but then in July, CMS mandated that, hey, we're going to reduce the token on FFM account integration from every 30 days to a 12-hour requirement. They also added concurrent login blocking, meaning if you're integrated with an FFM account, no other ED user can be integrated with that FFM account at the same time. Of course, we're all familiar with invalid action. This is the official term for if your NPN is not associated with an app, you will encounter the invalid action error when you're trying to submit it and have to do a three-way call or use the new Health Sherpa consumer resume link. Voter registration, just another additional, I believe, optional question on the application. It's an election year, so they've added that. If you answer yes, it'll give you a link to provide the consumer at the end of the application. And then most of you writing business will be very familiar with a valid SSN required on an application for any applicant greater than 90 days old. All right, so CR79 FFM account integration every 12 hours. I think our product and engineering team did a really good job implementing this. I will say, CMS kind of comes to EDEs and DE entities and says, hey, here's a new rule that we need to implement. Here's some guidelines, but we do have a little bit of leeway with regards to user experience and how we design the interface. And what we did with this, a lot of agents were like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so annoying. We just brought the integration point right after login. So really, you should be logging into your Health Sherpa account, integrating that account, and you're set for the day. If you're having to reintegrate your account multiple times a day, you're either not reading this alert correctly, which I've actually encountered a couple times. Somebody was clicking reintegrate instead of skip for now. Or there might be some issue with your account, and I'd recommend you get in touch with Health Sherpa agent support. But really, you should just need to do this once a day. It's slightly annoying, but I do it every day. It takes an extra 30 to 60 seconds. At the end of the day, it's not a big deal for the additional security it brings to the table. All right, now invalid action, what we're all here for. So in order to stop rampant unauthorized plan switching in the ACA marketplace, CMS decided to stop all plan switching in the ACA marketplace. And this invalid action error is whenever there is an active application, meaning an existing consumer in the ACA that has a pending effectuation or effectuated policy, and you are attempting to apply an NPN that is not currently associated with that application, you will encounter the invalid action error. Now, I want to clear up some rumors I've heard in the agent community This is not going anywhere. This invalid action error is here to stay. It'll be here all of open enrollment. It'll be here all of next year's SEP likely, and probably beyond. So um, the invalid action error is here to stay. We're excited because we now have another option besides the three-way call with the marketplace. I do want to stress the three-way call with the marketplace is still there, still available. My major concern is that come 11/1, those marketplace call center wait times are going to 3 to 4x based on enrollment volume 3 to 4xing. All right, next slide, Vince. And so if you have not tested the consumer resume link flow yet, I would highly recommend you start using it and get used to it and learn all of the ins and outs. Now, I will say that due to political pressure, which translates into additional CMS scrutiny. It's not easy. It's not like a silver bullet fix. Oh, I'm going to send them a link. They click a button, and I'm the AOR. There's a lot of security and privacy measures implemented here. Frankly, I personally think our consumer resume link is more secure than the three-way call with the marketplace because the consumers verifying their identity, they're going through consumer ID proofing, and then they're completing the application themselves. The big benefit, I will say, even if the time is even if it takes 10 minutes for you to walk a consumer through this, or 10 minutes to do a call, although I think I've heard it can take much longer. The benefit here is all of that enrollment data that's happening on HealthSherpa is A, it's still there, and it's not there if you do a three-way call. And B, it's there within seconds after the consumer completes the enrollment. So I'm going to, essentially to take you through the flow here. Remember, this is only on apps where your NPN or the NPN you're trying to apply is not already associated. That includes plan year to plan year applications. That includes any passive renewals that have been queued up on the bar, the batch auto re-enrollment system on the back end for CMS. So if you've got a 2024 client, I've got Mike Cardoso as my client, and I go and search the marketplace, I'm probably already going to see that 2025 plan today because CMS has queued it up for passive renewal. So I'm going to claim that, I'm going to pull it in. If I'm not, I'm going to go through and make any necessary updates to the application and the plan selection that Mike and I discuss. But then when I go to submit it, if somebody has AOR that policy from me and I'm not the AOR, I'm going to encounter this error. And so when you hit this error, it's now going to generate two options. You can either copy and paste the link into whatever communication systems you're using, text, email, carrier pigeon. I don't know how that would work with a link, but or you can send an email directly from this page. That's going to go to the consumer. The consumer is going to open it and they're going to go through these steps. They're going to first be prompted to log into their HealthSherpa account. 99% of people will not have a HealthSherpa account and they're going to need to create one. This was a CMS mandated security measure. I'm not 100% clear on why they want people to have EDE accounts. I'm guessing it's related to being able to see who their agent was based on a lot of the consumer complaints over the past 2 years. And then the consumer is going to enter their identifying info. This is kind of what I would call a soft identity verification. They need to enter their name, phone number, and date of birth exactly as it appears on the application. Once they do that, they will be prompted with consumer ID proofing questions. These are the questions you do when you create your HealthSherpa account and enable EDE. They're going to be multiple choice questions about the person's personal credit history. When they complete that, now, a couple of things. If they can't complete that, and we are seeing about 20% drop off here of people that aren't able to complete these consumer ID proofing questions. But when they get through ID proofing, they will enter account credentials to create an account, and then they will be they won't disrupt the flow at all. It'll just send them an email on the back end. Then they will be granted access to the application, and they're going to hit this finalize page. This is the page at the beginning of the last section of the application, where they've got a summary of all their answers to the application questions. They will then have to click through the tax attestations and signing and submitting to complete the enrollment. Whatever updates you made to the application, whatever plan you selected, whatever NPN you applied back here in step one when you encountered the error, that's all going to persist. And what you want to do is you want to just guide them through, click this, click that, and get them to the final plan submission to submit the enrollment. Once they submit the enrollment, you can see that on your client dashboard. Just refresh the page, and all the updated information will be there within seconds. Okay, Vince, do you want to stop and see if anybody has questions, or should we keep going
Oh, they're going to
forward?
have questions, but yeah, let's keep going. We have a Q&A team behind the scenes there cataloging all of them, and we'll present them at the end for you.
Awesome, perfect. All right, so that's it on the consumer resume link flow. I guess the last thing I will add is if you're testing this, your agents are getting things that aren't like that flow described, please contact Health Sherpa agent support with the FFM app ID so that we can fix any bugs before 11.1. It's critical. I know, like, the feedback I've received, our agents are a little hesitant to use this right now. I would say they want to learn it so that if the call center wait times go to 30, 60 minutes during OEP, you have this in your back pocket as an alternative. And we want to work out all the kinks and bugs before 11.1 if possible. All right, next slide. All right, voter registration. There's a question. If they say yes, you'll get a link with more info. Next slide.
That was funny. There's a little delay, just so you know, Ross, but I'm next slide,
Yeah,
and then
no
you turn.
worries. All right, so CR 8081 Social Security number is not only required, it's always been required for all applicants, with the exception if they have a legal immigration status. But it's now blocking your ability to advance in the application if it's unable to validate this SSN in real time. So when you're filling out the primary contact page or the member page for the other applicants, you put in an SSN here. The moment you hit next, that's pinging CMS, which is in turn pinging SSA, Social Security Administration, to validate, is this a valid social? Is it associated with the name and date of birth for this person? If there's a slight variance, like one number off or the name's misspelled or not the full name, something like that, it's going to trigger an error to tell you to retry it. If it's just a complete non-match, it's going to prompt you to contact the marketplace to complete that enrollment. So, definitely want to be clear when you're going through the app. Hey, is this the name and SSN exactly match? Verify that before you're moving forward. If they have like 3 kids and don't know their socials, you're gonna have to ask them to go get them or come back later and get them. You're not going to be able to move forward in the application without socials for any applicant that's older than 90 days. That's about it on that. All right, go ahead. Next page. All right, next one. So now we'll get into, these are all voluntary changes that the Health Sherpa Product Engineering Design and Data Team, or PEDD as we like to call it, has made based on agency feedback, agent feedback, and the annual surveys. You see this little feedback button in your accounts. I highly recommend you utilize that for very specific feedback on what would make your lives easier. That's read by everyone from myself and other AMs up to our VP of engineering and our CEO. So we have an automatic feed into our Slack on that feedback there. So definitely utilize that, leverage that, help shape the Health Sherpa platform to make your lives easier. The new agent dashboard here, it's really meant to be kind of your command center, your home page. You can choose to make it the first page you land on, or you can keep that as your client's page, but you'll have some specific notifications, action items. You'll have some recent enrollment activity for your agent account, any relevant news, and I think we have like certification link there now as well. Any timely industry news and stuff like that will be linked here. We have our invalid action consumer resume link webinar link there now, stuff like that. So just trying to get you your most highest priority action items that need to be resolved to make sure binder payments are due, documents are uploaded, things like that. All right, so the policy ID, this is a new addition over the summer. This is the issuer policy ID. So the carrier, when they receive the enrollment file from CMS, they're going to effectuate the policy, assign a policy ID, and then that's going to flow back eventually from CMS into Health Sherpa, as long as there's a sync event that pulls it back. This is going to help make sure that, okay, we enrolled this person, now we see him in our Blue Cross portal, whatever. We also know we've gotten some feedback that not every carrier uses policy ID, or some of them, use it differently. We're also adding member ID and subscriber ID, which should be available by the end of the year, or at least January 15th. So search and claim, this was another big point of feedback we received, especially over this summer in the past year or so, with a lot of duplicate applications coming in. Really, the big problem here is bad actors are creating multiple applications. And an agent talking to a consumer would love to help them, but they've got 3 plan year 2024 applications. Which one do I actually pick up and work is the common question. So we've tried to add a number of different data points here, from last modified date, the actual status, the app version, which is um, different every time it's submitted to CMS. That's across the industry, not just on Health Sherpa. And so all of this additional data, some of these tooltips here should help ensure you're selecting and working the correct application. There's probably going to be more regulatory changes coming soon that are actually gonna alleviate this duplicate application problem quite a bit. And just a reminder, we should really never be creating new applications unless it's a consumer is changing states, or the household is coming apart and you're taking somebody off one application and need to create a new application for them, like a divorce or a aging out dependent. And CMS has started automatically canceling duplicate applications over the past couple of months here, without notice to the agent or consumer, which is not very helpful. But all right, so quick reminder, consent and review documentation. I'm guessing most of you are on recorded lines here, doing all of your required consent and review documentation, but just reminder that the consumer must take an action to produce the record. So that's, you know, we've reviewed your application, you're putting you in this plan, you've stated your income is XYZ. Do you agree? Yes. Perfect. Review documentation. The only thing I like to stress here is that review documentation, people often ask, do I have to get consent every year? Consent is typically, if you've gotten it and it hasn't expired or been revoked by the consumer, it's probably still valid. The review documentation piece or client review or application review, that has to be documented every single time an agent submits an application. Even if you're just going in, changing the plan from, you know, and better to UHC, because the client asked you the day after you enrolled them, you still want to document that somehow, whether on the phone, email, anything along those lines. Okay. All right. And so, in order to help with this, HealthSherpa has added consent and review collection tools. We've got the consent option at the beginning of the application on the first page, and then we have the review application review tool at the end of the application just before you submit the enrollment. Um, you can leverage the email, a digital consent or review form. The review form does have the summary of the application answers and the plan selection on there, so it's a really nice CYA for your business, as well as meeting the required regulatory guidance. Go ahead, and we're working on getting SMS options, texting options available for those as well. All right, so the consent and review statuses are now on the agency enrollment export as well. So if you have an agency, you want to require your agents to do this and make sure they're doing things by the book, you could do that as needed. Go ahead. All right, renewals. So when we talk about renewals in the ACA, a couple important factors. Number one, if you do nothing, the vast majority of your book of business is just going to automatically renew. They're called passive renewals. CMS queues them up. They're already queued up in the CMS database to say, okay, this person had a 2024 plan. We're just going to take all that data and move it to a 2025 plan. The only time that changes is if you're doing an active renewal for that consumer. So active renewals are important to get an additional touch point in with that consumer, make sure you've got all of their application info, income, stuff like that accurate. They didn't get divorced this year, whatever the case may be, and that the plan they're in is still going to work for them. So a lot of things to watch out for when it comes to passive renewals are, if you have a plan or a carrier exiting a specific market, meaning a zip code or a county, if you have a plan exiting a market, CMS is going to do what they call crosswalk that person into a similar plan from the same carrier. Um, that one's not as bad as the the carrier exiting the market. Now, I defer to AOBG and their team on where that's happening. It's not as bad this year as it has been in past years with like Bright and Friday exiting entire states and the market in general. But I know there's certain carriers that are rolling back in some states. I think UHC in North Carolina is one. So that means if you have a UHC book of business in North Carolina and they're going to be leaving these counties, CMS is automatically going to put them in a different carrier's plan. It's going to be the same metal tier, same network type, lowest cost premium. So these are clients that you want to identify and do a an active renewal with, probably, because if you let them passively renew, the network may not work for them, the plan may not work for them, the carrier may not be a carrier that you're appointed with. So there's a lot of complicated factors there. All right, so in order to do renewals, we're going to need to make sure that application record is in our account. So obviously you're going to go search the marketplace. If you've got people that enrolled themselves, or maybe you let passively renew next year, those application records probably aren't going to be in your HealthSherpa account. You're going to have to go search the marketplace and pull in a record of their application to start the renewal process. Go ahead. Once you get them in your account here, you're going to have a couple options to renew and get them into an upcoming plan year plan. So from the client profile page here, we've got a couple options. Up top, you can click Renew Plan at the top of the client page. That's going to allow you to update the application first and then choose the plan, confirm your plan choice, and review and submit that enrollment. So when you do active renewals on Health Sherpa, it really only takes a couple minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. If you're talking to somebody and identify that, hey, I need to change my income, you probably want to use option 1 here to update that application and then choose the plan based on their updated eligibility. And when you start that renewal, it's going to generate a 2025 application with all of the data from 2024. So you won't have to go through and do the entire app from scratch. Now, if you're talking to somebody and they're like, oh, absolutely nothing's changed, you probably want to do option 2, which is down on the plan card here, where you can just click renew. This is going to allow you to click renew, shop for plans based on their eligibility from last year. And then instead of updating the application, I'm just going to see the summary and click continue, confirm the plan choice, and review and submit. All right, go ahead to the next one. All right, so Georgia Access, go ahead. So Georgia Access is a big deal for Health Sherpa and all of you agents that are, really focused on FFM states right now. There's a whole opportunity of 18 other states that run their own state-based marketplace or state-based exchange. Georgia, for context here, has been working on going to a state-based exchange since 2020, if not 2019. So anybody looking at going to a state-based marketplace, it's a minimum 4-year process to actually execute on that. But Georgia is a big deal because they are the first state-based exchange to have full EDE integration. That means, go ahead and go to the next slide, Vince. That means anything that you're doing on Health Sherpa today in Georgia is going to be the same as it is on 11/1 when Georgia goes live with Georgia Access. Quick note, because I know window shopping went live today for the FFM. Because Georgia is their own state-based exchange yet, their window shopping is set to go live midnight Eastern on Sunday night. So meaning, Monday morning, first thing, all those Georgia rates will be available in your Health Sherpa accounts. Now, Georgia Access account integration, you should all have done your Georgia state-based certification. You should have gotten an email from Georgia saying we've created your account, go claim it. I would review your email, make sure you have that. If you don't, contact Georgia Access. Um, Anybody that's selling in multiple states, which I think is most people on this call, as long as you have your account FFM integrated, you'll be good to go in Georgia as long as you've done the certification and your licenses are up to date. If you are a Georgia only agent, if you only sell in Georgia or maybe Georgia and other SBEs, you will have to do an additional step, which is set up two-factor authentication here. Go ahead. And really outside of that, we're hoping to have a big year in Georgia. Yeah, the certification deadline was 10/18. I think you can still do the certification, but you may have issues with your clients being ported over from the FFM to the Georgia Access and or getting access by 11/1. And I'll just add that Georgia, we really want to have a very big successful year in Georgia this year, because this is kind of the case study to unlocking additional states to give EDE access to agents and brokers. So Georgia was built by the same folks that built Pennsylvania, New Jersey, number of other states. So, if we can show them, like I said at the top of the call, the real growth in the ACA is agents and brokers using EDE. If we show Georgia continue to grow, that's a compelling argument for other state-based exchanges who, frankly, have had pretty flat or minimal growth compared to the FFM. And it's great for you because you've got more consumers to reach, more clients to write. Go ahead. All right, so a couple additional training and support materials here. We do have on-demand training resources. You can click on that agent training. Also the Help Center, Getting Started, What's New. Those are all links to curated resources to help people get started. These are great tools as you're onboarding new agents. Any of our trainings are recorded and are on demand via this agent training link. Next. And we also have a few additional trainings left this year. So we just did our consumer resume link flow training. If anyone needs the link to the recording or access to the recording, I'll get that over to the AOBG team as soon as it's live. We literally did it the call before this call, so it'll be live hopefully later today. And then, we are doing a few more HealthSherpa 101 English and Spanish trainings during OEP for some of those straggler agents that are still getting sorted out and ready to sell. Next. And then, of course, HealthSherpa agent support is always available from 6 to 4 Pacific. That's 9 to 7 Eastern Standard Times. We do extend those hours, typically on 12, 14, and 15, and 1, 14, and 15 to make sure you get those final enrollments through. The chat support is excellent. They typically answer within a minute. I highly, highly recommend, as we're going through and getting used to this consumer resume link, if you have issues, if the consumer is seeing something that's not described in all of our support materials, please chat into agent support with the FFM app ID. That's all we need to look it up, the FFM app ID, and we will try to get that resolved and get all the bugs worked out before 11/1 when the volume really explodes here. Okay, I think that's my last slide.
Well, just one more.
Oh, agent OEP readiness checklist. Make sure you are linked into the AOBG hierarchy in your HealthSherpa account. And then you've enabled AD. If you don't have a HealthSherpa account, go to healthsherpa.com and sign up for one. You just need your NPN and FFM username, and then you can ask AOBG where you should be linked into their hierarchy.
Awesome. Awesome. Ross, as always, man, it's such a pleasure, even virtually, to be together. Looking forward to a live meetup sometime in the future, of course. We are definitely going to have some questions for you, Bud, so I hope you're here for just a little bit longer. Michelle, Sarah, your turn. Let's see what questions are out there for our good buddy Ross.
Hey, thanks so much. Yes, we do have quite a few questions for you. I will start with this one. When sending the Health Sherpa link, do agents still need to read the disclosure statements to the client, or will they agree to them directly through the link?
Great question. So they will be agreeing to them directly via the link. They're actually going to be typing that they're signing and submitting. We do have all that data on the back end from that it is a consumer non-agent completing the link down to IP addresses, device IDs, etc. If there is ever a compliance concern, you can work through AOBG and we can get you that data if you ever need it for a Hicks case or carrier investigation. But yeah, I think I want to double check and make sure all of the client review pieces are being documented somehow. But I believe that is the case when you use that consumer resume link.
Okay, perfect. So to follow up on that, how long does the link process usually take?
It depends on the agent, the consumer, and how well they know their personal credit history. To be frank, we launched it less than 24 hours ago, or about 24 hours ago. We don't have the data yet on that. So I would recommend everybody go use the link, test it out yourselves, figure out who it works for, who it doesn't work for. It's not going to work for everybody. I had an agency tell me yesterday, they text out a consent form and they said if people have trouble, opening a text link and signing their name on one form, we're not even going to attempt the link with those people. So it's, figuring out what works for your business. You've always got that three-way call as a fail-safe as well. But, if somebody has no clue about it, if they're having a real hard time answering their questions on the application, they may not be able to do the ID proofing. You may be able to tell that. So keep
Case by
trying
case.
it and using it and figure it out.
Mhm.
Sounds great. And will that resume link always be set to the AOR, or always set the AOR as the rating agent, or will there be the option to select an NPN override?
Good question. So the option will not be available to the consumer. The agent has already made necessary changes to the application. The agent has selected the plan and applied a specific NPN when they submit the enrollment that triggers the invalid action. Everything they've done is going to persist when they send that link to the consumer. Now, due to CMS requirements, the consumer could go back into the application and start changing stuff. You don't want that. You want to stay on the phone and just say, have the flow chart that we have in this slide deck up in front of you, say, click this, click that, click this, enter an email and password, click this, and get them through that process as quickly as possible. But whatever plan you chose, and whether it's your NPN or an NPN override, that will still be on the app. They will not have visibility into what NPN is being applied, I don't believe. And they definitely won't be able to choose or change the NPN being applied. That will always persist.
All right, perfect. One of the agents had tested out the link yesterday, and the email link sent them to healthcare.gov. They just wanted to verify that that is how that link is supposed to work whenever it's sent
It
directly
is.
through email.
It is not. Yeah, the purpose of VDE is to not use healthcare.gov. I would ask, if possible, that agent report that FFM app ID to HealthSherpa agent support. Like I mentioned, we just launched it yesterday. We're trying to work out these bugs as quick as possible, but if we're not hearing about specific problems, we're not going to fix the problem. So please report these to agent support.
Okay, perfect. So we do have a couple more questions to go. How can we ensure that an NPN override is properly applied when doing a three-way call with CMS? For example, if one of our agents needs to call CMS and do an NPN override to the agency owner, how do they properly get this done through a three-way call with CMS?
Use the HealthSherpa consumer resume link. Um, no, I don't. That's a great question. I've heard from CMS higher ups that actually run the call center that um, the best thing to do is when you first get on the phone with that CMS rep is kind of set the stage for what the call should look like. Hey, this is Ross Baker. I'm here with Mike Cardoso. I'm going to enroll Mike in health insurance, and we're going to use Vince's NPN 1234. Most of them should be okay, fine. I have heard there's some agents that are like, you can't do that, that's fraud. And the people at CMS are like, please report those agents because they've been trained to say, hey, whatever the agent wants to apply as the NPN, let them apply that. It's not fraud. And
Another
they
thing I'll
probably have a
also
reason for
add
that.
to
Yeah.
that, when I was talking to Dean about this specifically, he said that they're bringing in a lot of their Medicare people over to the under 65 side. They're bringing a lot of new hires to handle the volume, and they have a script that has not been updated for these changes yet. So what I've been recommending to all of our agents, and I'm doing personally, is at the very beginning of the call, you start it up by telling the member, hey, we've been on the phone long enough. Did you know that you can give the marketplace consent to allow me to handle everything for you for 1 day up to 365 days? Every single time I've said that, the customer says, oh, yes, please, just do it. Then the customer marketplace will say, okay, identify yourself. The customer identifies themselves. Then they say, who's this agent? They identify you as the agent. And then once you have that authorization on file from CMS at the very beginning of the call, you tell the customer, all right, now if you want to, you can drop off. I'll handle the rest of it, and I'll let you know when it's done. Almost every single time the customer then hangs up because they've been on the phone long enough, now you can be very direct without the customer being on the phone and tell them what Ross was saying. Hey, let's skip to the end, just do what I need, put my NPN on it, let's move on. And now it goes to a 5-minute or less call.
Boom.
And Dean
That's
said
fine.
that was A-okay.
Excellent. Sarah, Michelle, any other questions for us here?
Yes. So the next one I have is if a client has a 2022 application and an agent is enrolling them in a 2025 marketplace plan, should they create a new application for 2025 rather than updating or working within the 2022 application?
Do they mean 2022 or 2024?
It says 2022. I would assume a previous
Yeah,
previous
if it's
marketplace
like
plan.
if it's an old application or like it was canceled in February, I don't even know that there's going to be a renewal option on there, so they would create a new application. Now, yeah, that would be a consumer without active coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so going with that, can you clarify what instances should the agents be creating a new application in the marketplace and not just utilizing a previous one?
Sure. Yeah. So the only time you should be creating a new application in the marketplace is when there's no active coverage, meaning, in that example, there's no 2024 or 2025 plan to work off. The only exception outside of that is if a consumer is moving states or if a household is separating, meaning I'm married to Vince and Mike's our adult child and Mike's turning 26 or whatever. He's starting to do his own taxes. Mike needs a new application.
Mm-hmm.
Or if somebody's getting divorced, you need one new application. But you shouldn't be creating multiple applications. And I will say I've seen cases where even the moving state one, CMS has canceled it due to suspected fraud, and I guess they just assume people will call in. I will say there's going to be some news from CMS in the next few weeks here that are going to greatly reduce the ability to create duplicate applications for plan year 2025. So it's probably going to be a non-issue moving forward.
Perfect.
Okay, sounds great. One more question is, being that most of the policies will be auto-renewed, if we have a client that was auto-renewed and another agency is trying to enroll that client, they have to do a three-way or resume link, correct? They can't just go in and create new applications on existing clients because it's open enrollment, correct?
You got it.
Love straight up answers.
They are always the best. I
They
do
are.
have,
That person understood the presentation.
Yeah.
so I have, this next one is, will the NPN show up when the agent does the link automatically?
Yes, the NPN that so remember, before you ever send any link, you have to go into the application and attempt to submit it with a specific NPN. Whatever NPN you use as the agent, when you send that link, it's going to apply the same NPN to that application.
Okay. Give me one moment for this next question.
No problem. And we have them coming right now is what's happening, Ross. So thanks
Oh
for being
yeah,
patient.
if there's any questions about Oscar, feel free to ask those as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry about that. On three-way calls, do you have any suggestions to get or for agents to request that CMS revokes previous consent that members may have given?
I would probably defer to Mike, although I will say CMS, I don't believe, has the power to revoke consent. Only the consumer does. Do you have anything to add, AOBG team?
Yeah, so I'll kind of chime into that. Something that Dean had mentioned is when you're on the call with CMS with the consumer on the phone, just like you were able to call them and say, I want to give me access for 1 to 365 days consent to make changes on the member's behalf, you also want to have them strip anyone else who currently has that consent, or else 2 or 3 or 4 other people can call the marketplace as if they were that client and make any changes, and they will be authorized. So that's kind of what they were talking about. Unfortunately, consent is used for like 3 different things. There's the consent to access a member's policy. That's the one at the beginning of a HealthSherpa app. That's the one that stays forever until revoked that you've seen in all the CMS language. Then there's the one they clarified last year, which is at the end of the HealthSherpa application. Do I have consent today to make any changes on this application to make the submission? And then the third type of consent that we're talking about now is when you're on the phone with the marketplace and the customer and say, do I have permission to act as if I were the member? So that's the one that when you're talking to the marketplace, you want to have that revoked. No, it's confusing, but that's what we're talking about here.
Yep. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. The next question is, do you have any updates on the FTR status? How exactly will that work? And if a client does not file their taxes, will the client lose their insurance?
If a client does not file, so let me paint the full picture here. Pre-Inflation Reduction Act, if you had not filed a tax return for the past 2 years, you were not eligible for tax credits. The Inflation Reduction Act paused that. and kind of put a embargo on canceling tax credit eligibility. They are now bringing that back. I don't know the exact timeline, but it's coming back soon. If folks have not filed tax returns for the past 2 years, they again will not be eligible for premium tax credits. Now, generally, the way it works is they cancel the tax credits and the coverage still applies, and now they get a bill for the full premium, and then they just cancel that anyway. So, yes, if people have not filed tax returns, their coverage will be in jeopardy because they're going to have to pay full price for it.
Okay, thank you so much. This next question is asking if you are no longer listed as the assister, but your AOR is still noted for the 2024 plan, do you have to do a three-way call to re-enroll?
You will not. So the assister is a value held by CMS at the application level that I wish would just disappear. It has nothing to do with who is the agent of record on the policy and or who the carrier sees to pay based on their carrier AOR rules and commission rules.
Okay, perfect. And then this last question I currently have is when the consumer gives you authorization at the beginning of a call, is that enough to satisfy the requirements?
Define authorization is what I would say, but and requirements. I'm not sure I totally understand, but to Mike's point, there's multiple regulatory requirements for consent, review, and then the authorization on the three-way call with a CMS, which is basically you're authorized to act on the agent's behalf for 365 days. So yeah.
Okay, and then I got another question here that's saying, just to be clear, if there's a 2024 app, do you work off the 2024 app to do their 2025 plan and not create a new one for 2025? As much as you can, try not to create new applications because of the deduping process that CMS has. That based on the timing of it, we've seen where they cancel out both the old plan and the one you made because your new one would, in effect, cancel the old one. CMS will see, oh, you've created a duplicate, so they're going to delete the duplicate, and the member ends up with no coverage at all in worst case scenario. So every time when you have the ability to do so, you want to take the existing plan and work off that. And from my understanding, Ross, I apologize if I'm oversharing, but I know you mentioned that sometime soon, Sherpa will even tell you, hey, of all the different plans that they have active right now, this is the one that you should be working on. So you want to try and not create a new one every single chance you have.
Yeah, and there's been some even further developments where you're not even going to be able to create a new plan soon. But that's the work on the search marketplace results page. I mean, I would say if you've got somebody's app in your HealthSherpa account, you've got consent, maybe you are the AOR, maybe you aren't, or it's under your agency's AOR. I would definitely recommend you just click renew and go through that process. You can click renew. It ports everything over to the 2025 app, so that's like 90% of the work. And then if they're under your AOR, you can just confirm the app information, confirm the plan selection, and submit it. Or if they aren't under your AOR, you can use the consumer resume link to have them submit it and finalize the enrollment.
Okay, Mike, I have a little bit of a follow-up regarding on what you guys were just discussing. Previously, the system has not allowed us to add past plan years to the client list in order to access and work off of. So how do the agents do that?
Sure. So as far as not being able to add the previous one to work on it, that just means you didn't have FFM authorization last year. All right, so that's why you can't go back and grab previous plans. That's the only reason it won't let you do it. What I've seen, and it's a toss-up on how they're going to treat it, but last year when you had the 2024 FFM authorization, they allowed you to grab 2023 apps to resume them and do the 2024s. I'm not sure if it will be that exact same way for 2025. So if you're not able to grab a previous plan because you're blocked from it, then that's one of those cases of you're unable to, so you have to create the new one. But I believe if you have the option to, go ahead and do it. If you don't have the option to, then go ahead and create that new plan for 2025. But more than likely, if you're not able to see their 2024 plan and they have no 2025 plan at all, you won't really be creating a duplicate, right? It'll be their first 2025 plan because everyone is supposed to have one FFM ID per year. We're just kind of erring on the side of caution to say grab the 2024 plan to continue 25. Does that make sense?
Yep. And just to throw out, when you're searching Marketplace right now, you're going to see the 2025 app for most people because all of the passive renewals have been created. They just hold them until after 12/15 to process.
Okay, and it looks like I have our last question. One of our agents wants to dive a little bit further into the FTR. They are wondering if they have a client enrolled for 2024 and they did not file taxes for 2023, is that going to cancel out their tax credits?
Like retroactively or?
Year. So if they file taxes this in the next season, will it cancel out that credit?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I can send them the FAQ from CMS to review. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
Sometimes we can't answer them all. Looks like we've got one more, possibly, Sarah and team.
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't see those come in right as they did. The first one I have here is, when is Sherpa moving to events-based EDE syncing?
Good question. So we've been working to get that via CMS. CMS has not, obviously they've had other priorities for the past more than 3 months. Really, any CMS level improvements are under a extreme level of scrutiny from a privacy and security standpoint and deprioritized unless they have to do with privacy and security and curbing any unauthorized plan switches in the ACA. So HealthSherpa has been going and integrating directly with carriers. I know AmeriHealth Caritas is probably the biggest carrier that we have right now. We have Alliant in Georgia, where they have daily data feeds for the policy status, the payment data, AOR, things like that into our HealthSherpa account. We're trying to go out and build that at a greater scale across the national multi-state carriers as well. But events-based processing currently is not a priority for CMS.
Okay, thank you so much. I do have one more question. This agent is wanting to make sure that their policies don't get canceled by CMS because of them making the wrong step. If they can't access the previous application and have to create a new one, how will CMS differ between not being able to access it and just creating a new app and it being a duplicate?
So that's again talking about 2024 versus 2025. If they don't have a 2025 app, then it won't be a duplicate. If they already do have a 2025 app and you're creating another one, then that's a duplicate.
All right. Okay. Well, looks like that's it, Sarah and team, unless there's more. Just double checking to make sure I'm not seeing anything different. And I think we're okay. So, Ross, I told you there was going to be a lot of questions, man. Thank you for answering them. Quick shot like that. Really appreciate your time. Of course, everything that you do for us here and our partnership and team together. So, thanks for being here, man, and appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone on the AOBG team for your continued partnership and excellent contributions to the ACA in general. Really want to thank all the agents for taking time out of their busy days. The last thing I'd like to leave you with is please test and learn the consumer resume link, because we're anticipating, that CMS call volume to at least 2 to 3x come 11/1. So you definitely want to be familiar with that link as an alternative if and when those wait times skyrocket.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We all got to work together to make it work. So, that's great, Ross. Again, thank you so much for your time and what a wealth of knowledge.
One last thing I do want to throw in here. Something pretty exciting that Ross had shared with us when he came to visit AOBG's office. He had mentioned that thanks to all of you on this call and our team here at AOBG, we're not only the largest producing entity, but you guys are producing more business than nearly all of the other independent agents on HealthSherpa combined, and there's no other organization that's even close. So thank you all for doing everything that you're doing. It's amazing.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you. Again, what a wealth of knowledge that we were all just shared. Just in case you weren't able to write down every single word today, we are making this presentation along with other handouts from our speakers today to be included, including Mark's video that you watched earlier as well, available to you at our strategy launch website. That's aobgrp.com/strategy launch. I want to personally thank all of our agents as well who joined us today, and to all of our speakers and partners for their time and providing a ton of value for all of us. I also just want to say thank you to our team at AOBG, Whit Bonner, who created and put this presentation together today. Thank you so much, Sarah Butler, Agent Services Manager, Michelle Henson, Financial Analyst, who led the Q&A for us today, and of course, Mike Cardoso, who some days I wonder how I would even operate without you, brother. Thank you all. And now for some final thoughts, Kenny West, sir, please over to you, and let's close this down.
I honestly, after that, Vince, your closing remarks, I have nothing to add other than to say what a fantastic job everybody did here in our team. We appreciate all of you agents and agencies. Study. It's if it was easy, everybody would do it. And with that, hope everybody has a terrific weekend.
Thank you so much, Kenny. And again, thank you, everyone. Have a great day and a great weekend. Bye-bye.